The Queen has completed her final and saddest journey to Westminster Hall today, with King Charles, his three siblings and his sons Prince William and Prince Harry following her coffin as the royal family handed her over to the nation. The Queen's coffin entered Westminster Hall as the choir of Westminster Abbey and the choir of His Majesty's Chapel Royal, St. James' Palace, sang Psalm chapter 139. The Archbishop of Canterbury then read the opening prayer, which the King led the royals in reciting. At 2:22 p.m. today, Her Majesty was carried down the Mall on a gun carriage, a tradition dating back to the death of her great-grandmother Queen Victoria in 1901, as her children, grandchildren and other senior royals marched behind in time to a funeral march. The Queen arrived at Westminster Hall 38 minutes later at 3 p.m., where she was placed on a catafalque, a raised platform, with her crown, orb and scepter placed on top. The monarch will lie in state there for 4 days and 5 nights until her state funeral at Westminster Abbey on Monday. William and Harry again set aside their feud and stood next to each other as they accompanied their beloved grandmother to Parliament. Their wives travelled separately in cars behind. During the service, the senior royals stood in formation facing the coffin on its purple-covered catafalque, which was flanked with a tall, yellow flickering candle at each corner of the wide scarlet platform. The King and Queen consort stood together a metre or so apart, with the Princess Royal and Vice Admiral Sir Tim Lawrence behind them, then the Duke of York alone, and in the next row the Earl and Countess of Wessex. Behind them were the Prince and Princess of Wales, with the Duke of Sussex behind William, and the Duchess of Sussex directly behind Kate. The Cross of Westminster was placed at the head of the coffin. The procession poignantly passed the statue of the Queen's parents King George VI and the Queen Mother, which overlooks them all. The imperial state crown, worn by the Queen on the way back to Buckingham Palace after her coronation, glittered in the daylight as the crowds held aloft their phones to capture the scenes. After a 38-minute journey to the cradle of British democracy, the coffin was brought into the Houses of Parliament via the Carriage Gates entrance and passed through New Palace Yard, which features at its centre a fountain to commemorate the Queen's Silver Jubilee. The King and the Queen consort led the royal family into Westminster Hall, with William and Kate standing in front of Harry and Meghan during the 20-minute service led by the Archbishop of Canterbury. Hundreds of thousands of people lined the route, but there was a silent reverence as the coffin appeared. There were some muted cheers and clapping and cries of God Save the Queen, as well as many tears shed as the late monarch left her London home for the final time. All viewing areas on the Mall, Whitehall and Parliament Square were full by 1 p.m., with people turned away.